Hello, my name is Stuart McPhee and I'd like to spend a few minutes with you today just talking about sector analysis. What sector analysis is identifying the best performing sectors or industry groups within a market, and we can do this over any time frame. This is a trading strategy that has been widely used by many people over many years. And we can extend that whole idea of identifying the best performing industries or sectors within a market. We can extend that and use the same concept to then identify the best performing stocks within those best performing sectors. And when you think about that, you can understand why so many people have adopted this trading strategy over the years. I must concede I first got this whole idea of, from a technical standpoint of looking at charts and conducting sector analysis. I got the whole idea from this book here, written by Stan Weinstein. It's called Secrets for Profiting in Bull and Bear Markets. It's one of my must-read books that I talk to people about. The concept of relative strength, as I said, is really measuring the performance of one thing against another, or perhaps a group of items, stocks, indices, against one benchmark. So when we're talking back to sector analysis, what we can do is take a group of industry sectors, and perhaps they'll have an index which represent the value of all of those. So we take the group of indices and we measure all of those indices against one benchmark. And that one benchmark will normally be the general market index, whether it be the S&P 500 or the Dow Jones or any other broad brush general market index. And by conducting a very simple scan and analysis using the concept of relative strength mentioned in that book, the output, the result is we can have a very short list of all those indices or all those stocks against that benchmark, and we can rank them, scale them from 1 down to X. So we can actually rank them in performance over any time frame. And of course, with software and data available to us now, this has become easier for us to do. So I'm going to show you very shortly in the software how in fact we do this. So once we've identified the best performing sectors and we've listed them from 1 to 0, then we can go into those top sectors and extend that and actually conduct an analysis of all those stocks within that sector up against the index to identify the best performing stocks within those best performing sectors. And as I mentioned, it doesn't matter how you trade and what sort of methodology you adopt, you can do this over any time frame you wish. The whole idea of relative strength, and it's a very a very powerful message, and again it comes from Stan Weinstein's book, and I'm paraphrasing here, not reading word for word, but the gist of what he was saying in one particular section was you may have two stock charts which are fairly much identical, but if one comes from a very strong performing sector and the other one from a not so performing or strong sector, you best put your money in the one with that simply comes from the best performing sector. The chances, again, probability of that one moving higher from the best performing sector is far greater than the one from a not so good performing sector. So, the whole idea of course, we're supported by the sectors that those companies are in, and often you'll find that you may have a very good performing company, but if it's in a sector that's not performing so well, you may find that all those good performing companies often are tarnished with the same brush. And if we think about a particular sector and not liking it, and then we see a company from that, we just tend to, no, we don't like it because it's from that particular sector. And that's how a lot of people do view the market. So it's a really powerful concept, a really powerful trading strategy where we can identify those best performing stocks within the best performing sectors. And you can see why so many people have used this strategy over the years. So what we'll do now is we'll jump into the software and I'll show you exactly how we can scan for these best performing stocks within the best performing sectors and see how perhaps it can help you.
So now we're just going to look at this piece of software and see how we can apply this concept of relative strength to indices or industry sectors and also stocks within those industry sectors. Here we have a chart of an index on the Australian Securities Exchange. It's the financial sector, the index which represents the financial stocks. And you can see I'm just looking at the last few months. Now one of the indicators in this software is called relative strength comparative. So if I apply it to the chart, I'll just create a new window first. If I apply it to this chart, I can compare the financial sector with another index or another item. In this particular case, I'm going to compare it to the XJO, which is our ASX or S&P ASX 200 index. And we now have a line which represents the relationship between the financial sector and the general market sector. So much so that if the line is moving upwards over this period of time, this here is outperforming the item that we are comparing it to. In this case, it's the S&P ASX 200 index. So during this time here forward, this sector is outperforming the general market. And as this has fallen during the 2 months prior to that, it was underperforming the market simply because the direction of this line here, the relationship between those two, was heading down. And this is just a very simple concept. Now, of course, this sector could be going up, but this line could be going down, in which case the sector is moving higher, but it's simply underperforming the market index because the market is performing better. Now, using this software, we're able to conduct a scan or an analysis using this concept. And what I'm going to do is run a scan over the 12 industry sectors within our market and simply compare each of those to the general market index. Now, of course, the scan being only 12 items doesn't take very long at all. And we can see now we have a list of those 12 sectors. If I simply rank them by this column here, which places them from the greatest value down to the lowest, I now have a list of the best performing sectors, and in this particular case it's over the last 3 months within the Australian market. So the best performing sector over the last 3 months has been the information technology sector. Now, this simple analysis I just conducted, of course, can be done over any time frame. We could change that 3 months to anything. 3 days, 3 years, or whatever time frame you wish. And if I simply bring up a chart of the information technology index, we should be able to see in fact what that index has done over the last few months, and we can see how well it has performed. It's moved from a value of around 370 to now be around 500 plus. So we can see there clearly it has performed exceptionally well. Now, using that same analysis or that same scan, I can then rather than just conducting a scan of the 12 major indices or the sectors, I can now go in and look at the best performing stocks within that particular information technology sector. So there's all the companies or stocks within that sector. I'm going to grab them all, put them into this same exploration or analysis tool. Doesn't take very long at all. And now we have, if I simply sort them by this column here, highest number down to the lowest. And the way we use it here, if the number is negative, it's underperforming the benchmark. If it's a positive number, it's outperforming, and the greater that number, the better it is at outperforming that index. So in this particular case, here's a list here of the best performing stocks within the best performing sector in the Australian market over the last 3 months. Now, there's one I recognise because I've traded this before. So if I look at OKN as a chart, we can see what it has done over the last few months, and we can see, yes, it has performed quite well. So it's moved from around 50 cents up to around $1.70 or so. Now, I guess from a trading strategy perspective, you could look, oh, look, maybe we've missed it. It's moved very, very well. Perhaps we've missed the opportunity here. But of course, I'm only looking at one time frame. You can vary this whole approach, this whole idea of relative strength. You can vary it and change it to whatever time frame is going to suit you. And if you'd pick this up and change that time frame, I should say, to maybe a week or two, then clearly it probably would have come up down here as being one of the better performing stocks within that particular sector. So this is just a very simple and a very quick look and an introduction to the whole idea of relative strength and how we can use that to identify these, changes in the way things move in the market and the best performing sectors and the worst performing. And of course, once we identify those best performing sectors, we can then very, very easily apply the exact same concept and identify the best performing stocks within those sectors. And you can now see or get a bit of a feel of why people and why this has been so widely used as a trading strategy over the years, and hopefully it may be something that you might be able to use with your trading to great success.